All right, first, just talk a little bit about kind of why you want to hire a web designer and make sure that you're really spending a decent amount of money on it. It's an investment into your business, right? So there's a lot of things that we do for our business, but the most important thing, especially now in such a digital world, is it's the biggest and most important investment you could probably make into your business other than any product or education or things like that. Definitely the biggest investment you can make into marketing your business, because this is what most people are going to go to understand more about you and your business. Another important thing to note is it takes about 0.5 seconds for someone to make a judgment call about your business and your brand based on your website. So knowing that also is really helpful, because you want to make sure that you create a great website, something that really speaks to who you are and that's gonna wow people when they get to your site. So thinking about your website in that way helps to make everyone, I think, a little more comfortable when we start looking at those price points, because it's not going to be 20 bucks. It'll be a decent amount of money, even if you don't hire a web designer. Designing it yourself typically will cost a good amount of money, a couple $100, just to set it up and get the things that you need in place. So looking at your website as an investment and as something that you will continue to manage over time is a really helpful perspective to have, which I'm sure a lot of you already know that, but I just like to kind of a little reminder. All right, so real quick story time. I have this very typical experience with my web design clients, and I will typically get someone who reaches out to me and says, okay, I've started my website and I am so frustrated with trying to set it up myself. I'm pretty much willing to pay you anything just so that I don't have to do it, which is not the place people want to be, right? Not only does that make you really desperate to find a solution to your problem, which means you may not do the research that you need to, but also it could mean that you're on the wrong platform, or that it's just going to become more of a hassle than a true joy. So definitely taking the time to understand, okay, what kind of platform do I need? What kind of website do I want? And hiring someone from the beginning can save you a lot of time and stress as well. So these are the questions I like to ask my clients, but also I like to have them ask themselves as they're figuring out what works for them. It can be a really helpful kind of process to go through. So first question is, how often do you want to update your website content? So depending upon how often you're updating it, that could really have an impact on what platform you use, because if it's something that you're going to update often, you want it to be user-friendly. This is something I ask my clients from the beginning is, how much are you going to want to actually have to go in and work on this platform? Because if we go with something like WordPress, which can get pretty complicated, it's just going to be a lot more work. Whereas Squarespace or Wix or some of these simpler platforms that are designed for people who don't have as high level of web design experience, it's helpful to know the differences there. And so that's a big key piece in what I do for my clients is I help them to see, hey, yes, you know, we're going to make this beautiful website and it's awesome, but if you are going to have like the biggest headache and like get super frustrated every time you need to make an update, or you have to pay someone to do it for you, that may not be the best thing for you. So asking that question of how often are you going to update the content is really important. And then looking at, are you adding a shop, membership, e-commerce to your site? Even if you're not doing it at the beginning, if that's something you want to do in the future, that's really helpful to know as well, because every platform pretty much today offers those, but not all of them are going to be the right option. So there's a lot of different platforms that you can use, and if you know where you want to go in the future, you can pick something from the beginning that you can even upgrade to that. So for example, Squarespace, you can have a very basic site, not a lot of nuts and bolts, just something simple, but you can upgrade it all the way through to a big e-commerce site. And so all of that is really helpful to know ahead of time so that you can pick the right thing for you. The other thing is, how many hours do you want to spend building and maintaining your site? So depending upon what you're looking to do, how often you're looking to update that content, there's going to be different maintenance needed for each site. So for something like Squarespace, they do a lot of updates regularly. It doesn't take a lot of extra maintenance, but WordPress, a lot of it is build it yourself. And so you can kind of take all these different plugins and they'll have different updates. And so you just have to monitor it a little bit more closely. So knowing that also helps you to decide, okay, do I want to have to go in every month or every week and look at this? Or do I want to just kind of check in every quarter and make sure that it's looking right? That can be helpful as well. And then, are you comfortable with coding and SEO? So this is something I like to ask people because, again, if you're having to update your site, even if you've hired a web designer and they do it beautifully, if you don't know how to work the back end of your own website, it can be a huge pain in the butt, because what if something happens, or, you know, for example, when COVID hit, all the web designers were getting hit up saying, hey, I need to change this, I need to do this, I need to do this. And that can just, if it's something urgent and you're not able to do it yourself, that can be really stressful and difficult. So knowing how familiar you are with those different things, which you don't have to know either of those to build a site, but those can be really helpful as well. And then how many web pages do you want to include? So some websites like WordPress, you can really create pretty much anything you want and as big of a site as you want and need. Whereas other platforms are going to be a little bit more limited, and the larger your site is, the harder it is to make sure that it works properly. So just knowing exactly what you need, and if you only need a couple web pages, like I have this one client, she wants like 3 different web pages. She really just essentially needs something a little bit more than a landing page, but not a full site for what she's doing. And so we went with Squarespace because it's going to save her money and it's super easy for her to update and simple. So keep it, you know, simple, keep it short, keep it small. That can be really helpful. Whereas I have other clients who are building out these really big, extensive websites. And so WordPress is a better option for them because we can really make something big and just really go into detail on each of the different web pages. So those are just some interesting and helpful questions to think through. And you don't have to have the perfect answer, but just even knowing those can be helpful, and asking your potential designers these questions can be helpful as well. All right, next, let's talk about why to hire out. So the biggest thing is it's going to save you time and money, which that sounds kind of crazy. How could it save you money? But if you're not spending your money, if you're not spending your time on building your website, then you are able to spend time on building your business, working for clients, or doing things that are going to earn you money, right? So ideally, whatever it is that you are paying your designer, you will be able to make that back very quickly, is the goal, right? The second thing is it can get done the first time, and it can get done right. So again, a lot of my clients will come to me and I'm essentially doing kind of a cleanup of their website because they had trouble getting it to look exactly right, or there's just little things that they weren't able to get to, which is totally fine. But a lot of times I go in and I just realize, okay, we missed a big piece here, or there's this piece that is missing here, and it ends up being a much bigger project than we anticipated. And so a lot of times it's really easy if you can go to an expert. You just saves you time, saves you money from that end as well. And then the third piece is you get another person's insight. So I do this a lot with all of my projects. I love getting other people's thoughts and opinions on things, partly because I know that the way I see things is not the way that everyone does. And so having different perspectives can be really helpful. And a lot of times I'll, mention something to a client and say, hey, this doesn't quite make sense to me. Could you explain? And then when they explain it, they're using better language than what they have on their site. And I say, okay, well, let's put that there instead. So just having that other kind of set of eyes that can look at it and look at it from a professional standpoint, where that we understand, okay, I know what works well on a website. I know what people are looking for. It can really help to round out your site better and help you in the long run. So you don't have to go in and constantly update. So there's just 3 reasons. There's a million more that you could add. But the biggest thing that I note is just saving time and money. Even though it seems like, how could you save money? If you're not having to build your site and going through the stress of all that, you have more time to spend on your business, or maybe spending time with your family or doing other things that you want to do. So that can be really helpful as well. All right, next let's talk about the actual pay. So what can you expect to pay if you decide to hire a web designer? So a couple of the things to recognize and remember, which I'm sure a lot of you have probably experienced if you work in a service-based industry and business as well, is you're paying for more than just the time, right? Even if it took me only 2 hours to build a website, the reason I can do that site in 2 hours is because I've done it a million times, right? So you're paying for experience, you're paying for the actual content update, you're paying for the knowledge and wisdom and know-how of the layout and navigation, then obviously actually like the labor to create it, and then project management. And then there's the extras of things like SEO or copywriting and copy editing, and just all the other little things that can come with it. And so whenever you're looking at that price tag, sometimes it can be a little overwhelming to think, gosh, it should be much cheaper, much simpler than that, but there's a lot of other pieces that go into it. And so that's kind of the thing that I've always noticed when talking with clients and then also with other web designers is how can we understand exactly and communicate exactly what we're doing to someone who may not be aware. And so there's a lot of those little details that are really, really helpful. And so that's just kind of a piece that can be a big help. And when understanding, when you're going to a web designer, okay, if they're charging X, Y, and Z, then it's probably because they have the experience or they know what they're doing. And if they don't, then you need to be asking questions, right? So definitely asking them for examples of their work, asking, you know, kind of why they are priced the way they are, which is a great question. But 9 times out of 10, it's all that other stuff that you may not expect that is also being put into that price. So just a little thing there. So I'm going to give you some examples of the prices for my sites, just because that's what I'm most familiar with, right? And this is pretty average. So for me, WordPress sites start at $3,500, whereas Squarespace and Shopify start at $2,500. So I say start because there's so much customization that comes with a web design project based on how many pages someone needs, how in-depth someone's looking for help, what they're really looking for, like if you want SEO or copy editing, that's going to be very different. So I say we start at these prices, which are pretty average industry standards, and they typically include like a 5-page website with the content provided by the client with some copy editing and then some basic SEO setup. So that will get you a great website that will really help you to communicate your message well to your clients and get you started moving through your process. But again, like I said, depending upon like if you're adding more than 5 pages, you know, that could definitely or will definitely change the price point depending upon how your designer prices that out. But I would say estimating that you're going to spend around $4,000 to $5,000 total. So after all the costs for hosting and for buying your domain and anything like that, I would just budget kind of on the safe side, about $4,000 to $5,000. And then that way, if it's hopefully going to be less, then you have the extra money there that maybe you could spend on, you know, getting some really great photos done or updating some of your copy or, you know, all these different things that you can do, but that'll get you a really good solid site. If you are getting someone to do a whole website for you for, I would say less than $2,000, especially if it's on something like WordPress, I honestly would be very wary of that. It doesn't mean that it's not like it's totally possible. You could get an awesome site and that person just is able to do a lot with very little. But typically that to me is kind of a red flag of, okay, they're either a brand new beginner or they're not going to do something that, you know, that wonderful. So just as far as pricing goes, that's kind of what I would look for and aim for and what I would expect. If you're spending, I don't know, like $10,000 or $20,000 on a website, I would really start to ask some more questions. Not that you can't and you shouldn't. There's plenty of people who do charge that amount. But if you're a small business owner, especially if you're a startup, there's plenty of things that you can do and that you can get for much cheaper than that. So again, it really depends upon what you're looking for. It depends upon who you're working with. But asking the question of how and why is it priced the way it is can be really helpful. So I know that that was pretty quick and we have a good chunk of time here at the end for some questions and answers. So let's get into that. Let's do some Q&A if you guys have any, and then I'll talk about the DIY course that I can help you with. Okay, do we have any questions about web design? Let's see. If not, that's totally fine. Okay, cool. Well, if you do think of something, feel free to drop it in the chat or the Q&A box. But let's talk about this next slide. So I want to talk about the new WDS Web Design Course. So I'm sure a lot of you have heard about it because I've talked about it before on here. But in September, the 21st, if you're not a part of the beta test, then September 21st is when you'll get access to the brand new WDS course, which is going to help you go through everything you need to design a great website. So you can do it yourself. It's totally possible. And if you really are balling on a budget, I would say designing it yourself is a great way to go. And investing a little bit of extra money into a course like this can help you to create the right kind of content for that site. So when you sign up for the course, you'll get videos and worksheets that'll help you to create all the website content that you'll need for the 5 basic pieces of it. So your home page, your about page, contact, service and product page, and then talking about a blog and a newsletter. We'll kind of look at that and help walk you through, okay, here's the different pieces, here's what you'll want to do, here's how you can write this out, and then gives you some practical questions and tools so that you can say, okay, I'm going to write down exactly what I'm going to say on each of these pages. There'll be articles and some extra resources as well to support you throughout the process, and then a guide to help you optimize your site for Google. So that'll be really cool and fun because it's a big piece a lot of people don't always think about, is they'll build a website and then wonder why it doesn't show up on Google. Well, there's now some things that you have to do with Google to make sure it shows up. You'll also have a quiz that you'll be able to see what website platform is going to be right for you based on all the things we talked about, like how often are you updating your content, how much money do you want to spend, what are you really using it for, all of that. There'll be a short and fun quiz that you can take that'll tell you exactly where to go, and then a tutorial on how to set up your site for that platform. So that'll be really fun and simple. And then with that, you also have access to 3 community groups. So there's a general course discussion group, some networking opportunities for that specific course and the school as a whole, and then a job and work opportunity. So it'll be where people can say, hey, I need some help with XYZ project. I'd love to hire someone. There you go. Or if you're looking for some help, you can post there as well. So I'm really excited about that. I will be sending out some more information on that as well with the follow-up email. So definitely keep an eye out. It'll be launching at the end of September, and I'm really pumped about it. So that's pretty much what I've got. And if you have any questions, feel free to shoot them my way. Next month is actually going to be a super fun guest series. And so I'm having 4 different people come in and talk on different topics. So next week, I'm having a friend and mentor of mine, James McNair, come in. He's going to talk all about business development and just having a really strong system so that you don't have to spend as much time doing that admin work. You can focus on your business. AJ Davis is a really cool woman who I met through a networking group, and she's going to talk about actually converting and optimizing your website for conversions. So that'll be a super fun conversation. And then my mom is going to come and talk about how to price your services. She's super smart and great at this, helps me out a lot. And so that'll be super helpful. And then Katie Stanton is a client and friend of mine, and she is going to talk about how to do social media and brand monitoring for cheap, basically. So without having to spend an arm and a leg, you can really monitor and manage your brand and your reputation online. So I'm super excited for you guys to hear from them and to see someone else's face on this screen. So if you have any questions or if there's something you want to ask ahead of time about any of those topics,